So our topic for tonight is really something that very timely. I mean, it's already April, and this month is basically the month where a lot of people remember BIR because they need to file their income tax return for last year. Of course, we've discussed that, and we have a recording for that. So in the event that you would like to get access to the recording of that session pertaining to filing and workings within the BIR, you can definitely request that. Simply email support@horsepower.ph. And if not, of course, you can ask directly through the chat box below. And of course, our guest speaker for tonight is also the guest speaker we had when we discussed the filing for your income tax return. And again, this is basically the second part of it. And I guess there's really no much need for introduction regarding our guest speaker for tonight. So our speaker, of course, is Mr. Mark Ong, and this is his second time with us. So let's bring Mark in, no? And by the way, while I'm bringing Mark in here, I just like to stress out to you guys that by joining this webinar, you automatically become a member of Horsepower's services, and you have the Business Lite account. What does that mean? Basically, it's a free account. Don't be afraid to actually activate it. It's a free account. We've already emailed you the details for it. And then, of course, once you're logged in, part of your membership includes capability to actually pay your bills, pay your SSS, PhilHealth, Pag-ibig through Horsepower. And at the same time, of course, if you have any legal or tax inquiries, feel free because there's a portion in our members dashboard where you can actually ask those questions, okay? So because, of course, Horsepower is all about believing that nobody should not have any benefits, especially the self-employed. So let us begin our session for tonight, and let me welcome our guest speaker. Good evening, Mark.
Hi, good evening, guys.
Okay, so Mark, this is our second time, no?
Yes. Last was February. The first
Correct.
session back in February was we did the first one that specifically talks about some reminders on annual tax filing, and
Yes.
we specifically did that earlier back in February to give people enough to make that webinar useful. Actually, there's no point doing that those reminders just a week before April 15. So
That's correct.
so this seminar, this particular one for tonight, I just want to clarify that to anyone listening. This is more about starting from square one, which is registering with the BIR, officially signing up as a taxpayer, or updating your records with the BIR. So, and hence the timing for that. So, I hope you guys can see the screen right now.
Okay, let's see.
See the
Yes, I can see it in my end here now, Mark. So go ahead, Mark. Take it away.
Okay, so as I said, we had the previous webinar back in February that dealt with, for existing taxpayers, some reminders to help them with the annual tax filing, which the deadline which fast approaching. For tonight, this is about anyone interested with has questions about how to register, or perhaps you have questions with regards to whether your registration has been done the proper way. The following slides would be able to hopefully answer some of those questions. And before I start, I just want to clarify two things. Firstly, number one, BIR has see they're trying to improve, but being user-friendly has not yet been their number one, shall I say, strong point. No? For anyone who are in Quezon City, living in Manila, there are different BIR offices that where you would need to go based on where you're located, or based on if you have an existing job, or that you used to have an existing employment where your TIN number is registered, let's say in Makati or in Taguig. You will notice that through your friends that basically every offices have their own way of doing things. So that's the one thing I want to clarify first. You will hear different subtle from each office, from your friends, whether they are in Mandaluyong or BIR in Quezon City. There will always be differences. No? Talk about points. They will not be able to tackle every subtle pop-up that's unique. These slides we will, so if you have questions, so feel free and we can talk about it later. So let's get started, shall we? Okay. Okay, we sort of grouped that into 3 steps. Some of the keys and taxes that are most of both freelancers, or for people that are just starting with their whether their online business or their home-based businesses. I'd like to clarify what VAT and percentage taxes mean and how they differ. And then optional tax is quite useful for small scale businesses that they may find this quite useful. Okay, registration with the BIR. There are 3 steps to it. We've got the initial registration, and then there's a briefing for new BIR taxpayers. And then, of course, thirdly will be for you to often go and file and pay your taxes. Okay, so let's focus first on the initial registration, the requirements, what we call the book of accounts, or yung libro in the Tagalog term, the libro, as well as the issuance of official. Initial registration. If you're a freelancer, or even if you just have a small home-based business, here are the lists for your initial registration. You do have to get your mayor's permit, a DTI document that has your trade name on it, NSO birth certificate, PTR, professional tax receipt. PTR strictly is just for licensed professionals. Some BR offices still require you to pay that 500 or 1,000 even if you're not a licensed professional, for as long as your business sort of deals with your service as a, if your main business really is what you offer, whether you're a writer or a graphics designer, you may not be per se a licensed professional with the PRC or professional, same as a doctor or a nurse. So sometimes they would pay that PTR. Some may not. So again, that's one example that could be different. I've listed it down because it may be applicable for almost anyone. A letter of intent is basically just a cover letter to summarize your intention to register or to update your status with the BRR. Maybe to update it from a employee to a self-employed or a professional. Some offices would actually want the sketch of where you're located or where your business is going to be located. Some may not ask for that. Again, it depends on the particular area where you would have to go. Again, whether it's RDO 51 or RDO 25, it depends on where you're located. Okay, and then you come back and get your certificate. The certificate of registration is basically what you see in when you visit a doctor or when you go to a. It's always attached close to where it lists down the taxpayer's name, the registration, and the different taxes that you need to pay. Okay, so that's just initial documents you need to file. Book of accounts. Book of accounts. These are the things that you may see in National Bookstore. Tawag natin dito, libro. Is where you basically record everything about your business. We have cash receipt and disbursement. This is basically where you record all the cash coming in and all the cash going out. Okay, that's the first one. The second one, you have a general journal. Again, that's basically where you list all the transactions happening. The non-cash transactions, whether you booked a project where you haven't been paid yet, etc., etc. Basically, every happening in your business, that's where you record it. These books, obviously, is kind of technical. It's more of what you discuss it with your accountant. But these are basically the key book that you need to present as you register. So what happens is you bring these books and the BIR will stamp it before you even get to use it, because they want to make sure that they've seen the books that you're going to use. They've seen it blank, that you're just about to start. They want to make sure they stamp it. Okay. Then the next one, you have another book to summarize all your expenses and all your income. So the first three are basically the key book of accounts. If you can, if BIR hopefully can allow your registration to go through with just these three, the cash disbursements, sana itong tatlo lang, and they'll let you through. The last two, they required these two in part to target physicians. As you see, the last want you to tell them what your rated virtual one. They're asking the doctors to tell them how much they charge their patients. It's been quite a controversial one. So last thing I know, it's still in the Supreme Court. There's a for that. Presenting have done the same thing. They've sued the BIR and it's with the Supreme Court pending as well. The last two items, I do hope that for anyone who wants to register that they won't bring those two register with them, because those two are still being hotly contested and being in the case of a lawyer, the appointment book in terms of who you are meeting with, there are some client confidentiality that they are trying to invoke, so they don't want to follow that BIR rule. Doctors are using that same reason as well, patient confidentiality. So it's kind of controversial, but the aim of the BIR is really to know if professionals are reporting all their, but the unintended consequences, there's some privacy concerns being raised. For that technically should not apply to all as I said, if you're a writer, if you're a graphic artist, or you work through online, you do some accounting work online through Upwork, for example, those two certainly should not apply to you, and I do hope that remains the case. Okay. Just some reminders at the bottom. Yung libro or the books that you use, you don't really need to use a new set of book every year. You only need to have the BRR stamp a new set of books when you've used all the pages in the book. Okay, so depending on your nature of business, for some, they may need more than one set of books, perhaps within a year. Some, you may actually be using just one set of books for 2 or 3 years. Okay, there's no rule that you need to use a clean set of books for each year. That's not the case. Okay. When you do get to change your set of books, that's what you need to do. You need to get clearance. You show them your previous books that's been used. The books that you've been using was stamped previously, and then you need to pay the standard payment form. That's basically it. Invoices, again, basically everyone needs to have this right now. No? When you apply as a business, they would require you to print invoices or official receipts. Now, let me clarify first. For service business, all you need to do is have an official receipt. Okay, there is no need to have sales invoice and official receipts. Let me be clear. For service businesses, all you need is to issue official receipts. Okay, that should be sufficient. If you do have clients, especially local clients, that are asking for sales invoice on top of the official receipt, please clarify to them that that's all to support their expense, which is an official receipt. Because I assume most of the people listening to tonight's webinar are having our service businesses. Of course, if you're selling items, you do need to also print sales invoices as well. Okay, but if you're just a pure service business, official receipt is enough. Now, what are the steps? There's a form for having the authority to print. We call that 1906. You fill up this form so that you'll be allowed to basically go to a printing press and design an official receipt that has your name on a design that you like, on a color that you like, etc., etc. As simple as that. The BRR office accredited printing press, so they will tell you who those are. The printer can always give you a blueprint or a sample of what the typical BIR receipt look like in terms of what are the data that BIR wants to see within the receipt, TIN number, etc., etc., the name of the tax of the business, what items do you sell, etc., etc. So the first step is to file a 1906 with the BRR. They will give you a form so that you can then proceed to a printer that they have authorized, and then the procedure would then start. Obviously you would need to talk to the printer to make sure that the design, the number of booklets that you need, etc., etc. Now, for those who are new to print invoices, one key feature for official receipt right now is there is an expiry date. Okay, so it's like buying a can of corned beef right now. No, the official receipt right now has an expiry date. Now, what's the purpose of the expiry date? The BIR wants to know how often a taxpayer is issuing official receipt. So what happens is you can print 1,000 copies today with an expiry of 3 years. So what after 3 years, it forces you to print another set of official receipt. So that's how BIR would know if you're using it. Because 3 years from now, when you ask for another 1906, when you fill up another 1906 form, they will ask to see your booklets. And if they notice you haven't really used up your previous printing, your previous batch of official receipt, that would essentially tell them that you've not been issuing official receipt. So that's how they do it right now. So there's an expiry date. As soon as it expires, you have to print another set. So that's another way that the BIR is doing to enforce payment of tax. Okay, so just to pause, no? We talk about initial registration, what you need, the first step, mayor's permit, DTI documents, your birth certificate, and then your book of accounts. We talked about the first three. I do hope it's only these three that you need to present. The BIR would need to stamp it before you can use them, or before your accountant can use them. And then you would need to print an invoice. I know this sounds a bit strange, especially if your business is online. Most of your clients are overseas. They don't even ask for official receipt. But you would be asked to fill up this form as part of registration with the BIR. It doesn't matter, I guess, if your client not asking for it, but at the end of the day, they want you to issue official receipt. You know, not regardless whether your clients ask for them or not. Okay. BIR forms. We talked about your when you register with the BIR, and for every year after the year of registration, what we call there's an annual registration. An annual registration basically is a 500 peso payment. It's still 500, I hope. It has a different form, but basically you just have to pay this annual fee. Okay, it's a form 0605. And then for income tax, we have quarterly income tax, and then we have the annual income tax. The form is 1701. If you're a corporation, it's 1702. I did not include those in the list that you see here. I don't suppose there's anyone tonight that are registered as corporations. No? But essentially, you have 1701 for individual taxpayers, form 1702 for corporations. Okay, we'll move on and I'll explain the difference between value-added tax and percentage tax. But basically, you have the 2551, which is the percentage tax, and then you have the 2550, the value-added tax. Okay, that is quite popular, you know, for most businesses that we go to, no, restaurants. Mostly these are big companies, so we have the VAT, or value-added tax. No? So in this slide, I've shown the difference between the value-added tax and the percentage tax. Okay, so there's a difference between the two. Most people who start their businesses, BIR would likely classify you as a percentage taxpayer. Okay, it's 1.9. That's the threshold. The threshold gets updated frequently. So some of your friends may have thought that they've already na nasa VAT category na sila. That may not be accurate because the threshold has been increased. It's now 1.9 million. So for most businesses starting, you most likely can still fall into the percentage tax category. Of course, if you're a franchise of a popular fast food brand, of course, you most certainly would have to pay VAT. Okay, what's the rate for the percentage tax at 3%, 12% for VAT? There's no offsetting for percentage tax. Essentially, what if you earn 50,000, you pay 1,500. As simple as that. No? For VAT, there's some more complicated calculations for it. I've shown an example here, but I don't suppose it would apply to most of the people listening to this webinar. Basically, for VAT, the VAT that you get from your sales, you offset that from the VAT that you have to pay from your suppliers, and you only have to pay the difference. That's basically how VAT works. So it's 12%, but there's an offset for that. Okay, so that's VAT and percentage tax. I'm sure everyone, there's some questions still about VAT and percentage, which we most certainly can talk about as we finish the slides and we move on to the Q&A. Optional. This is basically an option given by the BIR to make life more simple, make your ITR easier to calculate. What basically optional tax deduction is, there's a 40% option for if you want to, if you're say your revenue is 500,000 or 1,000,000 pesos, it simply means for 1,000,000 pesos, the BIR is fine if you want to claim as your expense. Okay, so if you claim no more than 400,000, you can simply put a one line in the tax return, 400,000, and they will not ask what that 400,000 is made up of. You don't need to break it down. You don't need to present invoices for the 40%. It's essentially a peace offering from the BIR. No, if you're willing to claim no more than 40%, you put one line as your expense, 40% of your revenue, and you move on. Okay. For certain businesses or entrepreneurs that where your business has a low margin, especially if it's a buy and sell, for example, maybe this option is not suitable for you. No? But for most professionals, this actually is a something that you might want to consider. It makes life much easier. If you can imagine not having to keep every single invoice of every single expense that you had that throughout the year, no? But by simply claiming 40%. So this is quite for some professionals quite a welcome option. So that's basically it. That's a simple step with registration. That's all you need to know. I guess, of course, for every single scenario, there might be some questions that are not, that you don't feel have been addressed on each side, which I think we can go through the Q&A. Shall we move on to the Q&A?
And since this is recorded, guys, of course, we will be sending you copies in case you'd like to review the information shared here. There's a question also, Mark, if there's any place where they can actually get a copy of your slide, but I guess they can just review the recording, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so there. So we have a first question here. Let me just load it up. Okay, this is from Bram. Can you guys say a few words on any extra requirements or limitations for permanent resident aliens?
Sorry.
Okay, that's from Bram.
Resident aliens, I assume if the resident alien is employed uh, and the employer has already essentially withheld the tax applicable for whatever service he's performed here, then I don't think there's even a need to file a tax return in the first place. No, but assuming if the resident alien is into business, the requirements, I guess, will be exactly the same. Of course, beyond the certificate, maybe the BIR would ask for some alien registration to ensure that you are in fact allowed to do business or to do the type of business that you're doing here locally. So that there may be some sort of administrative or even legal, simple legal requirements that are beyond BIR. But I
Okay.
assume that they would most certainly want to see your what they call an alien registration.
Okay, so Bram, I hope that answers your question. If you have any follow-up questions, but feel free to send that through our chat box. So we have more questions. Okay, it starts to rain here now, Mark. Okay, question from Tonette. Uh, Optional tax deduction. If you pick optional STD deduction, is this a fixed option yearly, or you can interchange between detailed deduction and OSD?
You can choose at the start of every year, and that's why you can't change your mind at the end. No? What am I trying to say? You can't having made up your annual tax, no, and then you realize this is what I want to do. No, so this is something you choose at the start of the year or in the first quarter of your quarterly ITR. You have to make that decision. Yes, you can change, but you have to wait to change it.
Okay. Another question from Tonette, because she has two questions. Another one is, how do you declare sponsorships? Like for events, is it considered sales or revenue?
Well, the BR really, they do have separate lines for that, no? But the way I can let me try to explain it as simple as I can, no? I assume if you're into that business where sponsorship is your main source of revenue, then that goes to your what you call sales or revenue. No? If that's something that your business receives occasionally, there's always a line in the ITR that's for other income. That's what they call it. But fact remains that that's still part of your revenue. It may fall into a different line. That's still part of your revenue coming in. And that means it would be subject to percentage tax, or in the event that you are registered as a VAT taxpayer, it will be subject to your VAT.
Okay. So Tonette, let us know if you have more questions or you have any clarification. Next question is from Jeffrey. So for freelancers, what specific expense can we include in our expenses? So I guess ayaw nila yung OSD.
Yes, that is, of course, that's an option. Diba? We talked about it. The BRR sort of, I call it peace offering. No? They're happy that if you claim no more than 40%, as I said, they're happy to not even ask you to break down the 40%. So for if you have if you have business where your expenses are way more than 40%, then of course you have to list them down. For freelancers or home-based businesses, I've always mentioned this, no, which is to pay attention to your uh, expenses at home as well as your non-cash expenses. No, that may be a topic altogether, which we'll find another day for that. No, I'm happy to share that. But just on the top of my head, no. So your rent, perhaps a slice of the rent could be you could argue as a reasonable expense of yours. Even if you, let's say, you're occupying half a room or a small room within your residence, a slice of the rent can be your expense. If your parents own the house, they theoretically can charge you rent. No, so that can be your expense. Utilities, of course, can be shared depending as long as it's reasonable. So I'm sure there are expenses that if you put your thinking cap on, there will be expenses in the house that can be attributed to your business.
Okay. So I hope, Jeffrey, that answers your question. If you have more questions, just post it in our chat box. Now we have a question here from Grace. The question is, let me just read it exactly how she typed it. This is a few questions in a bunch, but I've been working as a freelancer since 2014. I started my business with a BIR just last November when I had enough, and I've been paying my monthly due since. I'm earning 15,000 on the 1st and 15th of every month, and that's what I file on my 2551M monthly. I use EBIR forms and have paid taxes from November 2015 until February 2016. My books are stamped okay naman, and I have 10 receipts here. So I guess she followed yung typical process, no, di ba, mag-issue even if the client is abroad. Now, her question is this. What do I need to do for April 15? What do I need to do with the books, with the receipts, with the filing? I guess yun yung sunod-sunod na question.
Okay. This is just something I noticed, no, but I was surprised. It's a form 2551. I assume that's a percentage tax form, no. Hopefully that's not VAT form. No? So yes, every month there's this percentage tax form. Then every quarter, if I move back to my screen, as I mentioned, if you guys can see it, no, you have the monthly, the 2551, and then you have your at the 45 days at the end of each quarter would be your quarterly income tax. Now, in the case of having registered the business only in November or within the last quarter of 2015, then of course there's no need to file for quarterly ITR, but you go straight to your 1701 this April 15, which is to calculate all your revenues and all your expenses. Okay, that's basically it.
Okay. How about the books, the receipts? What should she do with what should we need to do with that?
Well, the books basically has the records of what you will transfer to your ITR. So basically, that's the source of information. You don't need to bring your books to them, as I said, until you have to use another set of books. Okay. So, and unless they decide to, unless the BIR decide to audit you as a taxpayer, you are under no obligation to show them your books.
Even the receipts, right?
Yes, there is no need to show them unless you're being audited by the BIR.
Okay. So more questions here. Let's see, from Kashka. Are all the forms, with the exception of 1701 and 1701Q, applicable for corporations?
Uh, yes, for corporations, I assume if the scale of the business is does not reach the 1.9 that I mentioned, no?
Mhm.
Then you would fall into percentage tax. Uh, but of course, if let's say if you're a franchisee of Pizza Hut or Jollibee, of course you're a VAT taxpayer. Okay, so and of course there's so many other forms. I didn't list down here some other forms that corporations need to file, like if you have employees where you withheld portions of their salaries as compensation tax, then there's a separate form for that. Okay, so the forms I have here are mostly the forms that are applicable to freelancers or home-based businesses. That most often than not, they don't really have employees. No?
Mhm.
It's really a professional business. So these are the forms that are applicable. For corporations, there are probably another 5 or 10 forms for corporations.
Okay. So next question is from Adrian. Do you have any advice about registering my business with regards to the Barangay Micro Business Enterprise? I think this is the
Uh,
law that, yeah.
yes, this is a law that basically exempts you from income tax, exempts you from paying minimum wage to your employee if you do have employee in your micro business. But only income tax. It doesn't exempt you from percentage tax. It doesn't exempt you from having to comply with SSS and PhilHealth and everything else if you do have employees. It does exempt you from income tax. It's a big deal for some. Uh, it's a very short document. You can Google it. It has all the requirements that are required. And my advice is to just follow what the law says. There's no need to try to gain an advantage to be able to make sure your application gets approved there, because there are tons of people doing it. So my advice is to just follow the rule, and then as long as you can show that your business is in fact a micro business, you will get approved. You may just have to wait a bit longer.
Mhm. I have a
I
question on that.
Okay.
Uh, since they will not be paying, assuming that they get approved for that BMBE law exemption, will they be able still to request for an ITR, or, proof of a document that usually what banks are requesting, right? So being part of that or being qualified of it, will they be able to at least get something like that as a document as well?
Uh, the BIR would, as you register with the BIR or update your registration, assuming you're already a BIR registered taxpayer, and then fortunately you've finally been approved as a micro business, then of
Mhm.
course you have to immediately tell the BIR, update your record. The BIR will ask for something in lieu of your ITR. I know that's what they call an AIF, or annual information form. You would still need to provide a summary of your business to them.
Mhm.
Of course, the tax is zero, but you still need to file something. And that something would be stamped, presumably. And that stamped document can still serve as a business document that the bank may find useful.
Okay. Okay, that
Because the
explains
BR
it.
will not, because tax exemption from tax does not mean that you don't have to file anything.
Okay. You still have to do the legwork, I guess, right?
Uh, uh, Case in point, my sister-in-law did not ask for my help at all. She filed for her home-based bakery business. She filed it. She'd been given a hard time, and she just said, "Well, if you approve it, you approve it. If you don't, then you don't." And she got approved. So I think she just followed the process.
Yeah, I think that's much easier as well. Yeah, because it's a bit hard. We've been trying that with our home-based store, and some municipalities will just say that they don't have yet any existing guidelines for that, so you just have to go with it na lang.
And
So there.
by the way, this is exemption from income tax. As you Google it, you will notice that the law says that exemption from local tax would be at the discretion of the local municipalities. So that may be something that you can share with your local city hall. You can print them and show it to them. I'm just asking for your approval para ma-exempt ako sa BIR. But I'm not asking for exemption from mayor's permit, from
Oh, yeah.
barangay fee, etc. I think that's one thing you guys can clarify and
Mhm.
make that point clear to them, because it doesn't affect their revenue stream.
Yeah, I
Doesn't
think that's
affect.
what they're afraid. They might think that they will
Doesn't.
not get anything.
No, it doesn't affect them. They are not. They're under no obligation to grant similar exemption.
Okay, okay. Yeah, good
That's
thing,
something.
good thing.
That's something to clarify to them. No, and it's a local tax thing. The exemption covers national tax, which is with the BIR.
Okay. Two more questions here. Guys, if you have other questions, just keep them coming. From OJ, and printing of receipts. How often do we have to print a receipt? For example, for a freelancer who gets paid weekly, do we just have to print a receipt once guest issue a receipt? How does it work? If you run out of receipt, should you just go to the printer or you go to BIR again? How does it work? Still there, Mark? Still there? Okay, I think we've lost Mark, but let's see. Guys, I just like to check if you can hear me. Just some quick sound check here. Can you please press the raise your hand button? Okay, great. Okay, so you can hear me. Let's just check with Mark. Um, we seem to have lost him. Okay,
Guys,
Mark,
can you hear me?
there you go.
Okay.
So with the question, we're able to, let me repeat the question again. How often do we have to print a receipt? For example, for a freelancer who gets paid weekly, do we just have to print a receipt once a week? In addition to that, if they run out of receipt, should they just go straight to the printer or they need to go through BIR again?
Yes, you have to go to BIR, and the chances of a taxpayer running out of receipt is quite rare, because first and foremost, the printer, for the printer to make money from a batch of receipts, no, they most likely will print quite a lot. It's really hard to tell them, can you print me 50 or a batch of 50 receipts, because they're not gonna. It's sobrang konti yon for them to make money, no. So
Mm-hmm.
they most likely will print 1,000 or 500, uh, and the likelihood of you consuming it before it expires actually is quite slim. As I said, there's now an expiry to your official receipts. So
Mm-hmm.
chances are it will even expire before you use all of them. And what the BIR does is they want to see your unused receipts. They want to see how many are left to gauge whether it's because it's simply because you've got few transactions, or perhaps because you're not issuing receipts. No, so that's their way of checking.
Okay. Uh, Another question here. Would you recommend to register a sole proprietorship business or remain self-employed freelance? I mean, is there a difference in tax filing, and is there an advantage to choose either one? This from Tonet.
Uh, well, 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 firstly, firstly, the BR says if you are receiving income solely from your employer, well, the first thing, because you will get a which I remember to be a Form 2317 from your employee. That signifies that whatever amount that have been deducted from your salary have been remitted to the BIR. No? Now, assuming you are earning money on the side, and you would want to disclose that to the BIR, you then file your ITR, and the ITR has sections to it where you compensation income, and then you list down the any other revenues you've been getting on the side. So for some, you could do that. Uh, Whether the BIR notices that and say, oh, okay, you're making money source. Now, where's your, are you registered for that? No? If they notice that, then perhaps that would be the time you need to let them know what that other source is. Perhaps until then, you include that in your ITR, and maybe that's all you need to do. Hopefully, that's all you need to do. Just include the amount on the side. But of course, that would presumably allow them to peek into those numbers, and if they figure that out, they might say, well, have you paid your percentage tax on these other sources? So there's no guarantee they wouldn't ask those questions. But the ITR itself allows you to list down the income from your employer plus other sources. So you can do that without filing anything separately. If you want, happy that you volunteered. Is that a question? I hope hopefully I've answered that question.
Okay, guys, can you hear me? Okay, Mark, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
I
good.
hope I was able to answer that question, or they were able to hear that.
Yeah, I think they were able to hear that. It's me who I think got connected here in my end. Yeah, I'd like to just add a little on that, Mark, no, dun sa huling question, because I recently tried to also register because I want to file, or at least to have my own receipts, because of
Yes.
course with my full-time employment with horsepower, they gave us, I think, the form 2307, which is four sets uh, that signifies that they actually remitted the fund, or the tax, that the money that they withheld. And then
Okay.
what our accountant did, if I'm not mistaken, although it's supposed to be us doing that, but
I think we lost you.
Unmuted. Hi guys, nawala ata yung connection ni Jen. So we'll continue with the other questions na lang, Mark.
Okay.
Um, from Grace, do you have an income tax calculator you can share with us?
Income tax calculator. I don't have this calculator, no, but well, what I can share, no, if you guys can still see my screen. Uh, uh, then, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. So this is page 2 of the annual. This is the annual income tax form, by the way, guys. Form 1701. You will see here on page 2. Okay, on page 2. At the bottom of page 2 is the tax table. Okay, so it shows you how basically how to calculate your tax. Okay, so if you're making more than okay, so if your taxable income is let's say over 500,000, then that's easy, you know. At the very last line of the table, it's basically 32% multiplied by whatever amount in excess of 500,000. So if it's 600,000, it's basically 32% times 100,000, because that's the amount in excess of 500,000. So 32% times 100,000, which is 32,000 plus 125. So that's 157,000. Okay, so and if you're, let's say if your income is 450,000, then you move a line up. So you're basically over 250 but not over 500. Okay, so that if you're 450, then it's 30% multiplied by the amount in excess of 250. So that's basically 450,000 less 250,000, which is 200,000. So 200,000 times 30%, 60,000. 60,000 plus 50,000 basically. So it's 110,000. So using my 2 example, if it's 450,000, your tax is 110,000. If you're making 600,000, your tax would be 157,000. So that's how you use this table. It's quite self-explanatory. You guys will notice. I don't have a spreadsheet with all the formulas in because I use this table for any calculation. Because it's quite simple. It's not that sophisticated. It's just 4 lines, as you can see.
Okay. So, Mark, we will just entertain a couple of more questions and then we're going to wrap up the evening. Huh? Sige. We have here a question from Jeffrey. Ito, medyo magandang question nga. For freelancers, can we file our taxes at any BIR office since most of the freelancers are mobile and basically can work anywhere?
That's not how the BIR works. You have to be registered somewhere, first and foremost. So by paying your tax, the first step, you have to register first. Or else, masasayang yung bayad mo. Because they have to register, they have to account it against someone, who is this taxpayer paying. So you have to register somewhere and pay it at that place so that you take credit for your contributions. So that's my point. If you want to file through online, you can do it afterwards, but you have this manual process of registration. There's this first step that unfortunately requires you to go somewhere. Perhaps the easiest way if you're based at home, would be somewhere close to your residence. Kung ano, that would be the place to go.
Okay. So Mark, another question from Grace. Is there any income tax calculator that probably you can share in online or resource, or it's not advisable to use a generic calculator? What do you think?
I haven't seen one. I've been trying to find one as well. I've been trying to do some formulas as well on my Excel sheet, but as I've shared with you right now in my screen, no, it's really not that that difficult to calculate on your own. So I haven't really gone to. I personally I don't have one. I haven't seen one as well. But the table is here for anyone to see. It's really not that complicated, no? So because for most people, we're really in three categories. It's either you're over 140 but under 250, or over 250 under 500, or over 500. There's really only three categories that applies to most people. I don't think unless you're under 140, pero in today's money, most people are in the upper bracket already, diba? So I don't think anyone would be still in the 30 to 70 category. Maybe just for the first year of your business, pero second year onwards, most people would be in the latter categories. So it's really not that, it's quite straightforward.
Okay. So Mark, last question here from Grace, no? She mentioned, I think it's a follow-up question from what she asked earlier. She was the one who registered ng November lang. So her question is, how about if I just started last November? So how do I compute my income tax? So I guess she wants to file for that, but she just started last November. So how does it work? Paano ba yung ganon?
Well, there's a good news to it, because most likely not only would she not be paying any tax, probably the BIR might owe her taxes, tax credits as well, because we do have what we call a 50,000 exemption for taxpayers. So basically, 200,000, let's say, of the year, or whether you make 2 million, regardless, you have a 50,000 deduction that applies to anyone listening to this webcast. Whether you started your business 5 days before the year end, or you've been in business years, it does not matter. Everyone deduction for so in her case, her business may have started only in November or 7, it does not matter. Whatever revenue for the year has a deduction of 50,000, and then has another further deductions if you've got kids, etc., etc. But that'll be a long story. Pero that'd be quite easy to calculate. I can. There's this deduction here that I can show. Maybe there's let me find the page, perhaps. Can you guys see the tax form, by the way?
Yes, it's moving on the screen, Mark.
Okay, so I have here on page 2, the 50,000 I was referring to was number 45 basically. So number 45 is that's where most people put the 50,000 deduction or exemption. And then number 46 is additional exemption. That's where if you have a kid, then you have a further deduction of, last time I checked, it's now been, I believe 25,000 per dependent for a maximum of 4. So if you imagine you started your business just 2 months left for the year, and you've only generated, let's say, 100,000 revenue or 50,000, you most likely will end up with a negative number because the exemptions does not change regardless. There's no pro rata of the exemption. It's a full exemption. Okay?
Okay. So Mark,
It's
one final question. Medyo may pahabol dito.
Okay.
Okay lang? One more?
Yes. We had this scheduled until 9:30, diba? So.
Yes, that's correct. Okay. Okay, a question from Jetro. Hello, I have a couple of questions that I still don't understand. I've been working as a home-based freelancer that receives a fixed monthly income for some time now. And recently, our company has just made an announcement that they would start imposing taxes on our payroll. They have yet to provide specific instructions. I want to know, how will this work since they are a US-based company? Do we still need to print receipts and issue them? How would they know how much we are earning? Would they require proof?
When you say they, you're referring to the U.S. company or BIR? What's they? Can I clarify that?
Okay, Jetro, can you answer the question for that? BIR.
Well, technically, theoretically, if your business is based at home, online, no one would ever know, di ba? Yun naman yung totoo. It's more of an honesty policy here as far as one's willingness to report to the BIR, di ba? Kanya lang, which I don't work for the BIR, by the way, but what the BIR is doing for just for FYI lang, no? They're trying to make life harder if you're not registered. Now, what do I mean by that? They're making business, getting loans more difficult if you don't have any documents with the BIR, first and foremost. So they're making it hard for you to enjoy the fruits of your labor going forward. You know? So that's why some people, they make lots of money, whether it's a business for decades, and then they end up wanting to buy a house, wanting to get a loan, and then they realize, I couldn't get a loan because I don't have any formal documents for the BIR, and the bank wants it. So that's just one example. Eventually, if you get to that stage, then if that's the only time you want to deal with the BIR, it's a prerogative of that person. So theoretically speaking, how would the BIR know? Tama. That's a valid point. I can't answer that.
Okay. Mark, pero isang part do sa question regarding, the US-based company being the one to deduct taxes daw, based on the question sa payroll nila. So how will that work, assuming that probably it's taxes from the US that will be deducted instead here in the Philippines?
Well, I don't know the nature of the business, the nature of the employer to be able to answer that. Whether they're I don't know. Is that U.S. tax? I don't know, or BIR tax? I don't know. So
Okay. Assuming
I would need more information. Is that on behalf of the BIR, on behalf of the IRS? So
I think it will be IRS on this one, since they don't have any local presence here. That's how I understand the question. So is there any way that, let's say, they can claim that whatever deduction from the IRS, something like that, or we don't have enough policies in place for that at the moment?
No, no, well, that's not a problem kasi I assume if it's an IRS, then of course the employer should provide those documents, and they
Mm-hmm.
can see for themselves how much has been deducted. As far as the BIR is concerned, if you've been deducted from a foreign source, that's a deduction you can claim. So as long as you have the documents to support it. So,
Okay. Okay din pala. Pwede rin. Okay, good, good.
so if uh, unfortunately, if let's say you've been taxed a lower percentage, let's say you've been taxed 5%, and you turn around and report it to the BIR, you may still end up having to pay 20%. I'm just making a simple calculation. You have to pay the differential, 50%.
Mm-hmm.
That's what so,
I
or
see.
kung vice versa naman, sorry na lang.
Ayun. So, guys, any more questions? I know we've received a lot of questions here already, but, take your chance now while we still have Mark here with us. Any more questions, guys? Okay. If you don't have any question, can you please press the raise your hand button? I just want to see if some of you are already good. Okay, almost all of them actually raised their hands here. Okay, good, good. So I guess, Mark, at this point, no, since they don't have any more question, uh, for the question from Mirasol, yes, this is being recorded and we will have this posted and shared to you guys, no. I'll be showing something on the screen later for your information so that you will know where you can view the recording on this. So Mark, do you have any, let's say, upcoming events or special trainings that we can further assist our attendees here tonight, or probably special session?
Nothing coming up now. I'm like I said, I was still recovering as
Mm-hmm.
sickness, so
Mm-hmm.
nothing on my plate right now.
I
You
see,
guys
I
have
see.
email me. I think I had I didn't have my email listed here, but you can certainly and she can provide my contact details. If you have questions, then shoot me an email. I normally answer those questions unless it's quite difficult. But if it's simple questions, there's no reason why I won't answer those questions. So,
Okay, so we will definitely share information. And also, Mark, if it's okay, let me ask na ngayon pa lang kasi we have a group now for all the Power Talks attendees. So is it okay if we also add you on that group? It's a private group only for attendees in Facebook.
yeah, yep. That's
Okay, so they can also ask questions there and let's see how it goes.
yeah. I mean, like I said, I answer those questions unless it's quite. It would require. It would takes. It's not something that I can answer right at the top of my head. Otherwise, I answer any question. So.
Okay. So there. So guys, Mark, salamat for taking time again to really explaining in a much, much more detailed explanation regarding this topic kasi medyo complicated talaga siya. And I think this is, I can say, one of the highly informative Power Talks that we have so far. So thank you for that. So guys, once again, maraming salamat for joining us this evening. And for the recording, expect an email from us so that we can redirect you to where you can access the recording of this. Also, if you are on Facebook, just search in Facebook Entrepreneurs Growth Network. That's a private group that only Power Talks attendees will be allowed to join. So if you are an attendee already, as you can hear this announcement now, go ahead, search that in Facebook, and we will let you in, and all the recordings will also be shown there. And also, our guest speakers will also be added to that group. So Mark, final advice on this regarding this topic for our audience tonight.
I guess I've said this before, no? For most of the people tonight that perhaps, okay, I've been freelancing or doing whatever, and if you feel personally na I might be late in trying to, na baka late ako in wanting to know more about BIR, or bakit ngayon ko lang parang inaasikaso to mga tax matters. Well, what I can tell you is you're doing the right thing. No, you're focusing first on your business, on your revenue stream, and I may not be a life coach, but you're doing the right thing. No, because money in first, saka na yung paperworks. Okay, so you guys are doing the right thing. No, I'm personally a CPA, but that's the right thing to say. No, if you guys know of any CEO or CFO, ang kasabihan, the CEO is paid more than a CFO. No, because the business side of things is more important. Will always be more important. So for anyone who feels that maybe I didn't pay much attention, etc., you don't have to feel that way, because the tax stuff can always deal with it. Will sort themselves out. Okay. Most important is what you're doing.
Okay. So there you have it, guys. Again, Mark Ong, maraming salamat, and we hope this is not the last time again that we had you dito sa Power Talks, and it's always informative. And hopefully, once we have a live Power Talk session, then probably we can really have you as a guest there once again.
Good night, guys.
Okay, maraming everyone. Again, this is Genesis of horsepower.ph. Have a great evening and God bless.